All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. If you're on a mobile device, it's going to be below the video. If you are on a normal kind of laptop computer kind of setup, then it's going to be to the right of the video. So if you're new to office hours, just to let you know, I start with questions that were asked up to an hour before. So I will be starting today with Thomas J. So Rick K. Malur B, Warren D. These were all questions that came in after yesterday's office hours. If you'd like to get your questions answered and you're on here, then go ahead and post them, and I will get them answered. It's possible I may run out of questions and we can go back to you, but if you want to make sure you get your question answered, then go ahead and then just copy and paste them back in there. The reason why I do that is I want to make sure that I'm answering questions for people that are here to see them get answered. You know, if you asked your question at 9 o'clock last night, I don't know if you're going to be here to see it get answered. And I kind of want to give, make sure that people who are here asking their questions are actually going to get their questions answered. All right, so let's go ahead and start with Thomas J. Says, in studying my swing on video, it appears that at contact, my left heel comes way off the ground. And left knee gets close to my right knee. Is this indicating I'm turning my hips too fast? It seems like I'm blocking more shots now and is percolating through all my clubs, especially my driver. So no, I mean, if you're turning your hip, you're going to see this in a lot of tour players. Look at Justin Thomas's swing, right? Look at Bubba Watson's swing. He's rotating his hips so quickly through contact that his foot actually comes off the ground. You'll see that a lot of times, especially in long drag guys. It's from the hips really opening up, very fast. Fast hips are good. The only problem that you may be running into and why you are having trouble blocking is that you don't have your upper body synced up with your lower body. You really can't open your hips fast enough, but what you can do is have your upper body not in sync with your lower body. So what you may be doing is you're getting your lower body opening up, but your upper body is staying too far behind, and then your path is too much into out. So if you look at from this angle, I'm coming down, I'm rotating my body, I'm getting like this, right? But I'm getting stuck behind me. My elbow is kind of getting stuck behind me. I'm not even really flexible, hardly flexible enough to get into this position. And then my path is way into out, and that might be where those blocks are coming from, because a block is caused by your path being too much into out, and then your face basically being in line with that direction. So if I'm thinking about this in terms of a baseball field, my club head is moving toward first base when I'm swinging through for a right-handed golfer, and my club face is also pointed in that direction. So my ball is going to start in that direction. It's just going to go straight in that direction. So what you need to do is really, what you're doing is a very powerful move, and I wouldn't want you to stop doing that. Stop rotating your body so quickly and really slow yourself down. What I'd recommend doing is just getting your upper body in sync with your lower body. And the way you do that is to really try to get that elbow more in front. Don't let this elbow get behind you in the downswing. Get this elbow working in front, and that's going to get your arms and your hands more in front of you, so that when you rotate, you're going to be right there when you're coming in, just like what you see with the tour players, just like what you see with the Justin Thomas, Bubba Watson, those guys that are their foot is coming off the ground, like what you're talking about. So a great drill to work on that is to just go up to the top of the swing and come down and pause halfway down. And when you pause halfway down, I want you to have that elbow as far forward as you can. Get that elbow in here. And then I want you to do a couple pumps where you kind of go like that, really work on getting that working in, and then swing all the way through in sync. And then I would do a few more reps of that. And then what I would do is I would do some reps with the golf ball there, kind of the same thing. Go up to the top of the swing, do some pumps where you're working on getting that elbow working into the body, kind of like this, right? Where you're rotating, and you're going to be probably rotating a lot more than me. It sounds like you're a lot more flexible than me, right? You're going to be doing that, and then swing through and hit the golf ball and hit some golf balls like that. Once you start getting comfortable with that, now do it without the pumps, right? Go up to the top and really focus on bringing that elbow into the body when you're coming in. Now, what may happen is you may leave the face open a little bit, right? So what you need to feel like is that you're turning that handle when you're coming down as well. So you're getting these pumps and then feel like you're turning that handle. That's going to come from this lead wrist going into flexion and this trail wrist going into extension. You watch, if I do that, that's going to close my face, right? That's only if you're leaving the face open. So if you're kind of coming through, you're getting this club on plane, but you're just hitting it off to the right, then close that face by turning that handle as you're coming through, and then you'll come in with a nice square club face. If you get it going left, you're overdoing it. So just ease off of that turning down to the handle. So try those drills, get that elbow in sync, get that upper body in sync with the lower body, and you'll start hitting the ball a lot better. But what you're doing is a very powerful move that we see, or what sounds like what you're describing is a very powerful move that we see long drive people doing. And you don't want to get rid of that. That's something that not a lot of people can do. So you don't want to get rid of it for sure. So Dave P said, had my best round using the pull the lawnmower drill. I mentioned last week, most shots were straighter and longer than in years. Maybe worth adding this drill. It sure helped me with my shoulder turns. So not really familiar with what the lawnmower drill is you're speaking of, but thanks for the feedback. Is it a drill from the website? Yeah. So Bernard Q says, I'm currently working on level 1 spine tests, lost 4 miles per hour on my swing speed since yesterday. Should I be concentrating on swing speed now or getting the spine angle correct, or both? Really depends on what's most important to you, right? So if speed is the most important thing to you right now, then I'd be focusing on speed. If you got to kind of evaluate your game, right? So we try to provide you with the tools to improve your game, but you kind of have to evaluate your game on your own if you're not going to use an instructor to do that, right? So you got to look at your game. Okay, what's most important to me? Do I need distance and speed, or do I need consistency and accuracy and things like that? So you have to look, some players, they hit a lot of fairways and they just need to hit the ball further. Some players, they have the speed, they hit the ball plenty long. It's just that they're all over the place, right? So if you fall in the category, you're kind of all over the place, most likely your spine angles are a little bit off. And if you're in the category where you're pretty accurate, you just don't hit it very far, then most likely your spine angles are probably pretty good. You just need to work on getting more speed added to that. So you kind of have to evaluate yourself and see what's going on there. Now, that being said, you really shouldn't be losing speed when working on the spine, when working on the spine angle. The only thing I could think of for the most part is that you're just not very comfortable with the position. So you're not really letting yourself go in swinging with the same kind of effort or things like that. So that's most likely what's going on there. But it's hard to say without actually seeing what's going on there. But you really shouldn't be losing speed. So get out of your comfort zone. Let yourself kind of let yourself go essentially, and you shouldn't lose any speed. And it could also be an anomaly. Maybe it's not uncommon for you to have a little bit less speed one day and a little bit more speed the next. So it could be where you just had a day where you were a little bit tight. The weather is a little bit cooler, or there's all kinds of reasons why you might be swinging a little bit slower. Now, if it was like 10 miles per hour slower, I would say that's a little bit more than just an up and down day. But 4 miles per hour, that's pretty common for the most part. For it to kind of fluctuate like that, that's not totally obscene. So I just get out of your comfort zone a little bit, but you got to evaluate what you want. If you got a lot of time to practice, then you can work on both, right? So when we're talking about the 20-minute distance fix, it's essentially a couple hours a week of what you're looking at, right? So it's three sessions a week, and you're looking at, by the time you factor in the time where you warm up and understand what you need to do, and you're taking the time between the reps, we call it the 20-minute distance fix because it's 20 balls, right? And there's a minute between every single one. But in the reality, it takes you a little bit longer because you're going to warm up before that, and so on and so forth. So you're looking at, if you're doing speed training, you're probably looking at about 2 hours a week right, of practice. And if you have more time than that, then you can work on the spine angle as well separately. And then you can kind of put those ideas together as you start getting more comfortable with the spine angle. But yeah, that's, you gotta, if you don't have a lot of time to practice, you gotta evaluate what's most important to your game right now, and then I would specifically work on that piece. All right. So Steve H says, I do not understand and cannot execute forearm rotation. I bring clumps straight back and straight through. Results sometimes okay, but inconsistent. Get pulls and topping at times. So really depends on your grip. So if you have a weak grip, right? So a weak grip would be where I have my hands kind of turned this way on the grip. So my thumbs are more on top of the grip, essentially. If you think about, a lot of times people talk about the V's, right? So the V's are going to be this crease between your thumb and your hand. Those are the V's. Those V's are basically, if you have a weak grip, those are going to be turning toward my chin. So if I have my wrist or if I have my hand, my grip in that kind of position, my elbow is going to be more pointed toward my my hip joint over here, right? So my elbow pits are kind of more pointed up. And when you do that, you've got to turn, you have to have more forearm rotation in the swing to get the club where you want it to be. So there's more forearm rotation, and then you just have to bring it back to that position. If you have a very strong grip, right? So if I have a strong grip, meaning I'm turning my hands like this on the grip, now the V's are pointing more toward my right shoulder. My thumbs are more on the side of the grip here. You can see where my elbow is now pointed more toward the target. I'm going to need less forearm rotation in the swing because of this, right? So I'm not going to really rotate. If I did this and I rotated my forearms back, I'm going to have my face wide open here. So I really don't need to rotate my forearms very much. It's more going to be a back and through kind of motion. Now, what you might be doing is, I don't know if this is the case, but this is just kind of what it sounds like. It sounds like you are bringing the club back, right? You're feeling like you're straight back, but if you're pulling, you're probably kind of going like this, and we're kind of rolling the forearms too much through contact. So I'm guessing you have a strong grip. You're bringing the club back, no forearm rotation, and then you're bringing the club through with forearm rotation, and that's closing the face. That's what it sounds like it is going on to me. So what you can do is either weaken the grip a little bit, right? Or you need to feel like there's zero rotation, or you may even need to feel like there's counterclockwise rotation, right? So if you're actually coming through contact and you're rolling your forearms through, and that's closing the club face, right? You feel like you're doing this. So here's the fault. You're coming through and you're probably rolling the forearms through and closing the face. Here's the feel. The feel I would have is that you're actually coming through and you're rotating the forearms that way, right? It's almost like you're turning a wheel to the left, or sorry, to the right. You'd be turning a wheel clockwise if you're right-handed. That's what I'd be trying to feel like. Feel like the forearms are turning to open the face, but the reality is that you'll be actually squaring up the face. That's what I'd be trying to feel like through contact. It's hard to say without seeing your swing what's going on, but a lot of that forearm rotation is dependent on your grip. Stronger grip, less forearm rotation, right? You have to do less back and through rotation. Weaker grip, you have to do more back and through rotation. So it really just depends on your grip. So I'd maybe play around with that a little bit, but really focus on what's going on at contact. If you're hitting a pull, that means the face is closed. So I would actually try to feel like, if you don't want to change your grip or anything like that, you're comfortable with that, then I would just feel like you're basically rotating the club the other way as you're coming into contact. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel like you're coming into contact like this and the club face is wide open, but that's not the reality of what's going on. And if it does happen, then just ease off of that feeling a little bit. That's great. You may change. Now all you have to do is just ease off of that feeling a little bit to get to where you want with it. So Charles P says, in Clay's latest video on wedges, he doesn't seem to be using the move to square the club face. Is there a time with irons when squaring is less important? So here's the thing. The move is a combination. We have to understand exactly what the move is. Okay, so the move is shallowing the club and squaring the face earlier in the swing, right? So with a wedge, it's a shorter shot. It's only here. So we don't really need, the club is already shallow. So you don't really necessarily need to do the move because the club is already shallow, but you are doing it because the club is shallow. So the move is shallowing out the club and squaring the face earlier in the swing. When you're hitting a wedge, you don't need to roll this face open in the backswing to keep it on plane. You can keep the club face closed. So you're basically already doing the move, right? So he is doing the move. It's just you're not seeing the physical act of him doing the shallowing of the club and the squaring the face earlier because it's already square and it's already shallow. So the move's already happening, right? So you're doing the move with basically all the clubs. It's just that some of it happens pretty much on its own. Now, if you're coming up to the top like this, you're coming up more vertically and you have the face open, right? Then you will need to do the move in your wedge swing, but nobody really hits their wedges like that, right? Because you don't need to. You can bring the club back shallow and bring it back through shallow, right? You can have the face square. You don't need to roll this face open a bunch, right? You can have that face square and then bring it back in to square. So the move is happening. It's just not, you're just not seeing it as obviously because, we're not bringing the club up way vertical and then dropping in it. It's already shallow. All right. So Mark T says, I had a question on Clay's latest video. Correct your iron showing the Varden drill when hitting the club head into the bag as the hands arms drop. Am I supposed to be maintaining my wrist angle or releasing some or all of it? I wouldn't even be thinking about that. I'd just be thinking about hitting down into that bag as much as possible. That's all you're trying to do is trying to feel like you're hitting that hammer down. So whatever feeling you normally have, that's the feeling you need to have when you're coming down, right? So I would just be worried about hitting down into the bag. You're kind of trying to overcomplicate the drill a little bit. It's not complicated. All it is just getting this feeling of really basically hitting that hammer down. That's all you're trying to feel there when you're coming into contact. Now, when you're coming into the bag. Now, when you go to hit the golf ball and you're seeing your results doing different things, right? If you see the face open, then if you got the face open, that'd be trying to turn the handle down a little bit. If you got the face too closed, then I'd be trying to not turn the handle down as much, ease off of that feeling a little bit, right? So it really just depends on the results that you're getting with the golf ball. Feel is relative, right? So you may be feeling like you're coming with the face square, but the reality is that it's not. Maybe it's way off to the left, way off to the right. So you have to adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. But when you're hitting the bag, all you're feeling like is that you're continuing to rotate and you're bringing that club down into that bag. If you haven't checked out that video, it's a very cool drill, very powerful drill that you can work on. But it's a great drill to get you to have that feeling of that club shallowing out and working from the inside with a lot of power. It's a very great drill to get that proper feeling. So check it out if you're interested. I think Clay hit like 150 some yard pitching wedge during the video. So Tyler T said, all of a sudden I was hitting in front of the ball while driving yesterday. Balls pop up real high and go nowhere. Any drills I can work on? I just went through the 20-minute distance fix. So it sounds like you're really sliding forward. When we talk about in the Top Speed Golf system, the compression line, that's where we want to be, have everything in a nice straight line and then slightly angled away from the target. So one thing that can make this easier is to widen your stance a little bit. This is part of the reason why I like to use a little bit wider stance with the driver, because it helps you to stay behind the golf ball a little bit. Because it's a lot harder. If you have a wider stance, it's a lot harder to slide way in front. If you have a very narrow stance, it's very easy to slide in front, right? So get a little bit wider. If you're already very wide, you're good. You just need to stay behind the golf ball as you're coming in. So visualize that club bottoming out and then working up into the golf ball. And that will allow you to get that upward angle of attack on the ball. So nice and wide with the stance. Get that compression line, which is the line that goes from my lead ankle, lead hip, lead shoulder, all in a straight line, slightly angled away from the target. It can be more so with a driver because we're hitting up on the golf ball. We're trying to. With an iron, it can be a little bit more vertical, right? More like this, or just very slightly angled away. But we want to make sure that we're staying behind the golf ball. If we slide, right, we get our nose ahead of the golf ball, then my club's going to be bottoming out here, and you're going to hit those pop-ups and things that you're talking about. Or you may even chop down into the golf ball, and it'll go super low with lots of spin, and it won't have a lot on it. So that's what I'd be looking at is widen up the stance, keep your nose behind the golf ball, visualize hitting up on the ball. Also make sure that you have it teed far enough up in the stance. You want to have that basically straight down from the lead shoulder is a good spot to be. So maybe you have a narrow stance and you're kind of playing it inside your foot. Well, if that's the case, that ball's probably too far back in your stance. That club's bottoming out where the golf ball is. So get that on the lead shoulder. Easiest way to kind of do that is lead shoulder, put the club right on my lead shoulder here. I'm going to drop it straight down from there on the ground, and then I'm just going to put the club out to the golf ball, right? So that's where the golf ball would be if you went straight down from the lead shoulder, put it on the ground, and then slide the club out to where the golf ball is. I thought that was pretty cool that because a lot of people, we as instructors, we make a lot of references to ball position in relationship to the upper body. And a lot of times that's hard to do because the ball's down there, upper body's up here. And the reason why we say in reference to the upper body is because that's really what's most important when you're hitting shots. Our stance width can change. So I'm not a big fan of saying put the ball in relationship to your stance, unless it's in the middle of your stance, because the middle of your stance isn't going to change anywhere, right? But if we're talking in relationship to your back foot or to your lead foot, that can change a lot because your stance width can change. You have some people that have a stance width like this and some people that have a stance width like that. So it puts the ball in a vastly different place. So I actually saw an instructor, there's actually a guy who's local here in close to here, Lake Mary, Mike Bender. He's a top, I think he's like a top 3 or 4 instructor in Golf Digest or something like that. But he's got an academy nearby here, and he has an Instagram that I follow. He's got some interesting stuff on there. But he was showing yesterday a player about ball position, and I thought it was really good. He took the club. A lot of times we say the lead ear, and I guess he uses that as well for ball position with irons. I think that's a pretty good position with irons, if you have your proper spine tilt. And he said, here's a good way to figure it out. Put the club right on your ear, right? So we're referencing the upper body, and then drop it straight down and then slide it out to the golf ball. I thought that was a very good way to kind of think of that, because we're always saying upper body. And I do get students sometimes be like, well, okay, I want to get it on my lead shoulder, like you're saying, but I don't know how to do that very, very easily. So take the club, put it on your lead shoulder, drop it down to the ground, straight down to the ground, and then slide it out. And that'll get you that perfect position every single time. All right, so Dennis G says, Q, I watched 056. Have you been hitting your irons wrong your whole life? And I can feel an increase in speed, but I'm concerned about this drill causing a cast. How can I get the speed without the cast? Thanks for your help. So it sounds like you have a concern about the cast, but you haven't tried it to see a cast yet. So I'm telling you, if you're already casting the club, then you probably are going to cast it. If you're already a caster, then you probably, it's not going to change that motor pattern. And if you want to stop casting, then you need to work through the top speed lag course. But if you're someone who's not casting, you already get great lag right now, it's not going to cause you to start casting. As long as you rotate, it's not. Now, if you just go like this and you don't rotate, this is why Clay talks about this in the drill, is that we have to make sure that we put the rotation in there. If you just keep your body closed like this and then go like that, yeah, of course you're going to cast because you're not rotating your body. But if you rotate, you get this feeling, and you rotate, you're not going to cast the club if you're not casting already. If you're already getting lag, it's not going to change that motor pattern there. So, or at least it's most likely not. In my experience, it hasn't changed that. So if you're already casting, then that's not going to change, right? It's not going to change doing this drill. This isn't going to get you to stop casting, most likely. And if you are casting, then you need to work through the Tusby lag course. But if you're not casting, it's most likely not going to cause you to cast. Give it a try. Look on video. See if you're casting. If you don't rotate your body, you will cast, but you're most likely cast anyway. But if you put the rotation in there, like Clay talks about in the video, you won't cast just like you weren't before. You'll just have, it's just a more powerful feeling that you'll have, though. So Patrick Y says, I have trouble keeping my spine angle during the swing. To start the swing, is it better to pull your left hip outward rather than much your right hip towards the ball to keep the spine angle? You want to pull your left hip outward. I don't like the feeling of the trail hip moving toward the golf ball. That's not what you want, because that's basically going to end up looking like this. That's early extension, right? So you need to get this left hip, your lead hip, pushing back out of the way. A good feeling for you to have would be to feel like your hips never move toward the golf ball throughout the entire swing. So on the backswing, I would feel like my hips push back away from the ball as I'm turning, right? And then the downswing, I feel the same thing. I feel like my hips turn back away from the golf ball, and then I'm continuing to move away from the golf ball as I'm coming in. That's going to create space for your arms and hands to come through. If I have that feeling where my hips moving toward the golf ball, then I'm going to go like this. That's early extension. That's flip city, shank city. A lot of bad things that can happen there. So keep the hips moving, rotating, and feel like they're moving away from the golf ball, right? Move away from the golf ball. If you were to draw a line on a tour player, most tour players, 96% of them probably, you draw a line on their backside at address, that you will never see any light between their backside and that line throughout the entire swing. There are a few players like a Jimmy Walker or Zach Johnson that do move a little bit off of that line, but they also Jimmy Walker is kind of a little bit of an early releaser. He releases the club a little bit early, and Zach Johnson really kind of slides forward a lot to compensate for that too. So, these are things you can do in your swing to make compensations, but I wouldn't be trying your best ball strikers, your Tigers, your Brooks Koepka, your Rory McIlroy. You're never seeing any light between that backside line. So feel like the hips are moving away from the ball throughout the swing. All right, so keep your questions coming. I'll go back down here and see if there were questions that were posted beforehand. Malur B asks how to hit long fairway bunker shot of 150, 160, 170. So that's really easy. You hit it just like a normal shot. You just make a couple adjustments, a normal shot that you would hit from the fairway. So I would take extra club, and then I would choke up on that club. The reason why you choke up on the club is that it gives you a little bit more control of it, right? So longer club is a little bit harder to control than a shorter club. Right, so I choke up on it about an inch. That will give you a little bit more control of the club, because out of the bunker, it is essential that you make ball first contact. That's the most important thing out of the bunker, is to make ball first contact. If you hit behind the golf ball very much at all, it's just not going to go anywhere. That's why you're probably having trouble, is because you're hitting behind the golf ball too much. So whatever you hit, your 150, whatever, I would just take extra club, right? So let's say you hit an 8-iron 150 right now, right? Well, if you're hitting a bunker shot 150, I would take a 6 or a 7-iron. I would choke up on it, and then what I would do is your normal ball position, like we talked about earlier with ball position, straight down from the lead ear. That puts it a little bit ahead of the middle of your stance, the ball. I would move that more to the middle of your stance. And again, like I talked about before, out of a bunker, a fairway bunker, when you're trying to hit a long shot with it, it's essential to get as much of the golf ball as you can before the sand. If you get any of the sand, it's probably not going to be a good shot. So putting that ball a little bit back in the stance, more in the middle of your stance, is going to make it easier for you to make ball first contact. All right, so choked up, ball first contact, put the ball in the middle of the stance. And you can take an extra club and take more of a 3/4 swing to give you a little bit more control. Or you can just take, like one extra club and take a full swing and just make sure that we get to our lead side and get that that ball first contact. One thing that can help when you're taking a longer swing out of the bunker is just to dig your feet in just a little bit. This will give you stability. Bunkers oftentimes are not very stable surfaces, right? So we want to make sure that we have stability and digging. That's why a lot of times you'll see tour players, they'll dig their feet into the sand a little bit to give them a little bit of stability. They're also kind of getting a feel for the sand. Is it soft? Is it firm? Is it a little bit soft on top, firm underneath? It's giving them a feel for the sand as well. So if you take those measures, it's pretty easy. But the key here is to make ball first contact. You got to make that ball first contact. Otherwise, you're definitely going to struggle out of there. All right. So Patrick Y says, thank you. That was a terrific explanation. No problem. Glad I could help. So again, keep your questions coming. We got about 30 minutes here. So keep the questions coming, and we'll keep answering them. I'll scroll down to see if there's any good questions to answer from yesterday. So Warren D says, I'm working. This is a question from, it looks like late last night. Says, I am really working hard in the stable fluid spine section, but the tilt at impact leads me to hit up on the ball, increasing the loft and making me hit the sky ball. What am I doing wrong? You're not getting to your lead side, and you're most likely not rotating when you're coming into impact. So if you're coming into, so just to talk about what Warren's talking about here, he's working through the stable fluid spine course and the impact position with the stable fluid spine, which is the most important thing in the course. So for the stable fluid spine at address, we want to be about 6 to 8 degrees angled away. If you look at my torso here, I'm about 6 to 8 degrees angled away. If you were to draw 2 lines outside my torso, as I go up to the top, you want to see you remain in those lines, right? And you want to see the overall angle of my body to also remain in those lines. So if you look here, I got my lines right here. If I go up to the top, you're going to see I'm going to remain in those lines as I go up to the top in that 6 to 8 degrees, nice and stable position. You don't want to be going like this. You don't want to be going like this. You don't want to be going like this. Like that's going to be unstable. It's going to be hard to be very consistent when you do that. The most important angle is now when we come into contact to get more angled away as I'm coming into contact. So yeah, if you look at the middle of my hips, middle of my shoulders, as I'm coming into contact here, right, middle of my hips, middle of my shoulders, you're going to see I'm about 18 to 25 degrees angled away. That's where I want to be. So what you're likely doing is you're likely going like this to get into that position, right? So no rotation, and you're hanging back. You're hanging your upper body back, and you're staying kind of on your back foot to get in there. What happens when I do that is I'm going to now hit behind the golf ball. I need to get my body moving forward and rotating, right, and get it hitting down and through the ball with the iron. So you're probably not rotating. So push with that lead leg and rotate that belt buckle toward the target and get your body moving forward. If you can't rotate, then you're probably not going to be able to get into that position as far as the angled away. You're going to be less angled away. All right. So if you're coming into contact and you can't get that kind of rotation, then I would much rather you not have that rotation and be less angled away than try to be in this angled away position and hit a foot behind the golf ball. You need to get, if you're not able to rotate, let's say maybe you can only rotate about this much, then you need to get your compression line more forward, right? So you can see here, I'm not in that 18 to 20 degree range. I'm probably more in that 10 to 15 degree range right here with my spine angle at impact, but that's allowing me to get to the golf ball. Whereas if I'm trying to get into that 18 to 20 degree position and I can't rotate, then I'm going to be way behind the golf ball and hit poor shots, hit those sky shots that you're talking about. So you may, if you can't rotate, then you may need to have less spine angle coming into contact in order to hit the golf ball before the ground. So let's go back up and see if there are any questions that were added. All right, so we got some questions in here now. So James M says, Q, can you go through the fluid spine or as far? Oh, so questions were added and then all right, so let me read this again. So James M says, Q, can you go through the lag from release in slow motion? I don't know if I'm doing it the right way. Thanks. So this is all explained in the lag course and also in the straight line release course, but we can talk about that right here. So what we want to do is, as we're going up to the top here, we want to have this angle between our lead forearm and the shaft around 90 degrees, somewhere in that area. And then it can be a little bit less, a little bit more, but what we need to have happen is in the downswing, we need to get this angle sharpening about to this lead lag position here. So lead or max lag position. So max lag position is going to be when the arm is about parallel to the ground in the downswing. We need to see this angle either getting smaller or staying the same. We can't see this angle from the top to that point in the swing, lead arm parallel. We can't see this angle getting bigger. That's going to be casting. If you do that, you're going to release the club early almost no matter what, right? So we need to get this angle either sharpening a lot, right? So that's going to be like a Sergio Garcia where it's sharpening a ton, right? Or staying the same from here to there, like a Dustin Johnson. Somewhere in there is where you want to be. The tour average is going to be about 65 degrees is what you'll see at this angle. So the angle's here, and then it sharpens to about 65 degrees between the lead arm and the shaft. Okay? From there, from that lead arm parallel to the ground position, that's when, so from here, that's when the angle starts to get bigger. Now, it may seem like you're holding off on this lag all the way until contact, but that's not the reality of what's going on. It's starting to release from that lead arm parallel to the ground position, but it's happening very, very slowly at first, right? So if you go look at tour players' swings on YouTube, you'll see they sharpen it to about right here. And then if you go like 2 frames forward, you're going to see the angles a little bit bigger. Then you're going to see it starting to get a little bit bigger again. Now, this is typically a good place to be. When the hands are in front of the trail thigh, you see that club about parallel to the ground. That's what you're going to see in your better ball strikers. In amateurs, you're going to see that club is right here, right? So when the hand's in front of the thigh, you'll see the club is already kind of releasing, and then you'll see at impact, not a lot of forward shaft lean, and then the club's releasing probably about somewhere right in there. When you see tour players, they got that club about parallel to the ground in this position. They come into contact. They're at contact when looking from face on. Their hands are typically about in front of their lead thigh, and then that club releases out in front like that. So that's typically what you're going to see. But if you want to work on these things, first I work on getting this lag. Don't worry about how the club is releasing yet. Just worry about getting this lag, getting to this point in the swing right here. That's in the top speed lag course. All right. Once you get the lag down, then you can move on and get to that straight line release where now you've got this lag. Now you want to get it releasing out in front properly. So that's going to be in the straight line release course when you do that. So work on the lag, get that to where it's second nature, work through level 1, level 2, level 3, get in all the reps. Again, you need to get to where it's automatic, where you don't even have to think about it, because it's going to be difficult to go to the straight line release course and work through that when you don't have the lag down yet. It takes time and repetition to be able to do that. We say 3,000 reps, for the test for each one. So level 1, 1,000 reps, level 2, 3,000 reps, level 3, 3,000 reps, right? So that's 7,000 reps, and that's not counting all the drills in between. That's just for the test part of it. So we're not telling you that just because, we're trying to keep you busy and, we want you to keep your membership forever or anything like that. I mean, we'd like you to keep your membership forever, but we're not telling you that just to keep you busy. It's because that's how long it takes to develop a motor pattern. Now, for some people, it's different. So for some people, if you're already kind of comfortable with getting some lag, if you already have a little bit of lag and you're trying to get a little bit more, it probably won't take you as many reps for that to be for that to become second nature. But if you're someone who's doing this from the very, very beginning of the swing, you're just casting the club like crazy, it may take you more time and repetition to be able to do that. So you got to work through level 1, level 2, level 3, and everyone tries to move on to something else. Once you don't make this mistake where you actually start getting into the positions and then you think, oh, I got it, and then you move on to something else. The reason why you don't want to do that is that when you move on to something else and you haven't fully ingrained the motion yet, when you start doing that new thing, you're going to stop doing your lag because you're not thinking about it. So basically, there's competence levels and there's consciousness levels, right? So initially, you have what's called unconscious incompetence. So this is where you're doing the wrong thing and you're unaware that you're doing the wrong thing, right? And then you have conscious incompetence. This is where now you're aware that you're doing something wrong, or where you have unconscious incompetence. That's what you would have. You would have unconscious competence where you're still doing the wrong thing, but now you're aware that you're doing something wrong. And then you have conscious incompetence where you are trying to do the right thing, but you're having trouble with it, right? You have to consciously do it. And then essentially you want to get to where you have unconscious competence where it's second nature. So those are kind of like the levels of learning that you have to go through. It takes some time and repetition to do that. So get your lag down, then move on to the straight line release. I wouldn't make the mistake of working on your lag and the straight line release at the same time because you're just not going to be able to do you got to have that lag first, because if you don't have that lag first, it's going to be really difficult to get that straight line release, just because you're just already going to be releasing the club. It's just going to be too difficult. All right, so let's go. So Bernard Q says, as far as stable fluid spine is concerned, should I feel that my hips are in front or level over the ball? In front or level over the ball at address? In front or level? Your hips are going to be pretty level at address. So at address, they can be slightly tilted, but they're going to be pretty level at address for the most part. Where that tilt's coming in is mostly in your upper spine, right? And you might have a little bit of tilt in your pelvis, but for the most part, it's going to be pretty level. So either level or slightly tilted is fine. But for the most part, you're gonna be pretty level with the hips, and the tilt is going to be mostly in this upper spine, the thoracic spine there. All right, so we got about 15 minutes left. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them on there. I'll scroll down and see if there was any more good questions while we were out. So Richard S. says he's pulling the ball way too much with the driver and with the irons, and he's been through the instruction, and it sounds like he wants some help. So so this looks like it was posted last night, about 10 till 11 p.m. So basically what's going on when you pull a shot is that your path, right? So your path is out to in, right? So if you think about it in the sense of baseball again, and when we talk about the block, the pull is the opposite of a block. It just means, so the block was face and path going toward first base. A pull is face and path going toward third base for a right-handed golfer. So what you need to feel like is that your path is out toward first base and that your face is also out toward first base. That's what I'd be trying to hit a block. So here's the fault. The fault is this: over the top, path to the left, face to the left. The feel is too much underplane, really, really angled away coming in, right? Very angled away with my body. Shoulders closed, path out to the right, and face out to the right. Here's the reality of what's going to happen. You're going to have your hips opening up, you're going to have your shoulders square, and you're going to have your path going to second base, right toward the pitcher, and you're going to have your face going right toward the pitcher. That's going to help you to fix your pull. So feel like you're pushing blocks out to the right, and that'll fix your pull. And you keep doing that until you actually start hitting blocks out to the right. And then once you do that, then you just ease off of it a little bit. Excuse me. So again, we got about 14 minutes or so left. So if you got your questions, go ahead and post them on here. Until then, doesn't look like we had any other questions. So we'll check my email while you guys are messing with that. So if you're just joining us, I'm just waiting for a question to be asked. So if you got a question, go ahead and post it. I'm just checking my email. Until then. All right, so looks like we got a couple on here. So Stacy B says, I'm yesterday's classic Harry Vardon drill that Clay went over. Can you use that same feeling with the driver? Yes, you can use it with the driver as well. It's just the sensation through impact is going to be a little bit different. So with that drill, you're kind of driving this club down into the ground, in front of the golf ball. But with a driver, you're going to have the sensation that you're coming down and you're missing the ground and you're driving that nail up into the golf ball. So I actually have kind of a cool little visual here. So with that Harry Vardon drill, you're thinking about coming down, hitting that ball first, hitting that nail down into the ground, right? Whereas with a driver, we want to move that nail to where it's now up, right? So that we're hitting up. So you're going to come down, you're driving that club down and then back up into the golf ball, and you're driving that nail up into the golf ball to hit that ball. So this is kind of a cool visual that I would use. I drilled a hole. I did this the other day. I drilled a hole through it, stunk up my garage. The insides of a golf ball, when it's melting, it doesn't smell very good. And then I just took a nail and kind of hammered it through there. So it could be kind of a cool visual to kind of show you how that kind of works. But yeah, same feeling. I would just feel like you're driving the nail up instead of driving the nail down. So Nigel W says, when driving, if the ball starts dead straight, then severely slices, is it likely that my path is okay, but though my face is open? No, your face is the ball is going to start mostly in the direction of your club face, and then it's going to curve away from the path. It could also be a heel strike, right? So when you hit the ball off the heel, your face could be open, and then you could be hitting it off the heel, which will twist the face closed and may make the ball start straight, but then it will put curvature on the ball due to gear effect, which will make it slice to the right. So that may be what's going on as well. I imagine what's going on is that you're probably having the face open, you're hitting it off the heel, and then it's slicing even more like that. So I would take some foot powder spray it on the club face, and then see where you're striking it on the club face. If that is the case, then I would intentionally try to strike the ball on the toe. Line up as you normally would. Don't line it up on the toe, because that's actually going to be counterproductive for you. A lot of times if you line the ball up on the toe, subconsciously you'll think, okay, I've got to go out there and get that ball, and you'll just hit it on the heel anyway. So line up right in the middle as you normally would, then try to hit it on the toe, and that will likely move that strike closer to the center of the face. If you still hit it in the toe, or if you still hit it in the heel, then you need to exaggerate that feeling even more. You need to get out of your comfort zone. You may need to feel like you're coming in and you're missing the golf ball, or hitting it off the edge of the toe. That may be what you need to feel like. Now, if you actually get it to be in the toe, then that's great. That means you made change. All you have to do now is just ease off of that feeling a little bit to get it more in the center of the face. So That's what I'd first be doing. Once you get it in the center of the face, now you can boil it down to face and path. So the ball is going to start mostly in the direction of the club face. So if you start hitting it in the center of the face and that ball is starting to the right, then that means your face is open. You need to get your face more closed. If you start hitting it in the center of the face and the ball is starting straight and then it's slicing after that, then that's a path issue. That means that you're coming in, the ball starting mostly in the direction of the club face. It's starting straight and then curving off. That means that your path is to the left. You need to feel like you're swinging more into out with that closed club face. Feel like you're swinging out to right field, right out to first base with that club face closed. Feel like the club face is pointed more toward left field when you're coming through. A good visual for this is to feel like if you're driving this nail, right, you're coming in and you're driving the nail that way toward right field, but you're trying to hit this part of the golf ball, the outside part of the golf ball. So you're coming in and you're basically doing like that with the nail. So I'm driving this nail, but the nail is going to kind of go like that, and that's going to put that draw spin on there. Typically, the best way to fix any issue, if you're hitting a slice, try to hit a draw, right? If you're hitting a draw, or if you're hitting a big old hook, to try to slice it. That usually gets that miss where it's more manageable. So Anthony B says, I am a left-hander. I tend to swing too much into out because my misses are right to right or left to left. That drill, what drills do you suggest to work on swinging more to the right to hit it straighter with a fade? So if you're left-handed and you're struggling with hooks, I recommend going to our Never Hook Again course and working through those drills. That's going to get you to where your path is much more on plane. So to get to the Never Hook Again course, all you have to do is go to the instruction tab, or actually go to the house icon at the top of the page, select that house icon, and then scroll down and through there. You'll see a list of all the courses that we offer. You'll see that bonus course. There's 20 plus courses that we have on the website that address about any issue that you may have, any major issue, hooking or anything like that. If you go to that Never Hook Again course, that course is all about getting you to get that club more on plane, like what you're talking about. So great drills in there to help you work with that. So go to that course, Anthony, and start working through those drills. Nigel W says, thank you. No problem. Glad I could help. So we got a few minutes left here. If you got questions, go ahead and post it. Bernard Q says, I can easily fade the ball, but I'm having trouble intentionally drawing the ball. Could you comment on a draw? So to get a draw, there's basically two things that can give you trouble with hitting a draw. You need the face to be closed to the path. So that means that the direction the club face is pointing needs to be closed to the direction the club head is moving, right? And you can't hit it off the heel. If you hit it off the heel, you're going to have a hard time hitting a draw, right? Because of something called gear effect. When the ball hits the face in the heel, what happens is it will close the face a little bit, and then the ball will actually kind of roll toward the center of the face, which gives it kind of fade spin on there. So you can hit a ball with a draw, face, and path, right? You can have the face close to the path, but when you hit it, if you hit it on the heel, the ball will start a little bit more to the left than it normally would, and then depending on how severely off the heel and how much of a difference you have between your face and your path, it may go dead straight, it may fade, or it may just draw a tiny amount. So when you don't hit it in the center of the face, it makes it hard to control your ball flight because of that gear effect. So get that ball in the center of the face, or even try to hit it a little bit toward the toe a little bit to get the ball to draw. Be a little bit more toe biased when trying to hit a draw, because when you hit it in the heel, it's just really difficult. When you hit it in the toe, it'll make it easier to hit a draw, right? Because of the opposite gear effect. So when you hit it on the toe, the face will twist open a little bit, and then the ball will kind of roll toward the center, which kind of puts that draw spin on there. So be a little bit more toe biased. Try to swing. Try to go extreme with it. Try to hit a big old snap hook to get that ball to draw. Once you get a snap hook going, you get that ball to start way off to the right and then curve to the left. Then you just ease off of it a little bit to get that draw going a little bit better. Just ease off of that feeling and then get to where you tone it down to where it's a nice little draw. So to hit a draw, we want to swing out to first base with the face kind of pointed toward third base. So if I get my nail again, my little visual cue here. If you got this here, I'm hitting the golf ball that way. So if I'm driving the nail in like that, that's a path that is 0. All right. If I angle this that way, right? If I point it more toward first base, I'm feeling like my path is coming in. I'm driving that nail that way, but with a closed face. So I'd be feeling like I'm swinging out toward that way, driving the nail that way, but by closing the face. So almost when I hit it, I'm feeling like I'm hitting the head of this nail, and it's going like that. That's what I'm trying to feel like. Whereas if I just come in and try to drive the head of the nail, I'm trying to, hit it solidly. Well, then I would just hit a block. So I need to feel like I'm trying to drive this nail in, but I'm also trying to kind of get that nail to kind of spin around, and that's going to get that draw. Once you get that, then ease off of that a little bit to get, or once you get that hook going, ease off of that a little bit to get the draw. All right, so Art D says, if one is releasing your swing via your modules, should I concentrate on just one first and go through all drill before practicing next? I have access to club driving range and can devote 2 hours a day to practice. I think probably the best way to go through it is to devote yourself to kind of one module, get that to where it's second nature, it's ingrained, and then move on. Once you get to where you've gone through the reps, it's completely unconscious, it's automatic, then you can go on to the next piece. So start in the stable fluid spine and get to where, and depending on where you're at with your swing, if you're way off on everything, it's going to take you more time. If you're stable fluid spine, if you're already in a great position at address and at the top of the swing, you just need to work on your impact position, then you probably don't even need to do level 1 and level 2 of the stable fluid spine. You probably just need to work on level 3. If all of those things are already looking good, then move on to the power turn course. If the power turn looks good, then move on to the lag course. If the lag looks good, then move on. Basically you get to where you're doing everything second nature, and then you move your way through the course. I think the best way to work through the course is to complete each module. So stable fluid spine, level 1, level 2, level 3, and then doing the power turn, level 1, level 2, level 3, getting all of that second nature. I think that's the best way to work through it. But I've also heard of people going through the course with success where they do level 1 of the stable fluid spine, and then they go to the level 1 of the power turn, and they go to the level 1 of the next piece. You can do it that way as well. Do all the level 1s in order, then do all the level 2s in order, and so on and so forth. But I think the best way is to kind of do each module. But it's completely up to you. You can do it either way. Like I said, I've heard of people having success doing all the level 1s. The main thing is just getting out there, doing it, putting in the reps, and that's really going to be the best thing for you for sure. All right, so we're about done here. If you got any last minute questions, I'll be happy to answer. If not, we will wrap it up right here. We're almost right at 10 here. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining me today. We'll be back here tomorrow, Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Quick note, starting next week, office hours times are going to change. It's going to be all 9 a.m. office hours are moving to 11 a.m. So Monday is same time, 5 p.m. Tuesday and Wednesday will be at 11 a.m. instead of 9 a.m. And Thursday is going to remain at 3 p.m. and then Friday is going to be at 11 a.m. And these are all Eastern time. So I put a little note up there above the on the banner of this page, so you kind of see that as well. I think we're going to send out a note in the email on Friday about it as well. So just wanted to let you guys be aware of that. But thanks everybody for joining me today. We'll be back here tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you next time.